I think we're still getting some more people. But for the sake of time, do you guys want to go ahead and get started? Yeah, you think so? You don't sound too enthusiastic about it. I don't know if we should. Yeah? You guys in the back, you want to go ahead and get this started? You guys want to meet Smooth McGroove? I hear he's from Oklahoma. All right, guys. Well, what we're going to do here is something similar to a late-night talk show. So instead of a Q&A, we can do some Q&A if you don't think I'm doing a very good job, which is entirely possible. I think I'm going to go ahead and introduce a very special guest for Super BitCon 2015. You may have seen his stuff on the internet. You may have met him in person. I don't know. But ladies and gentlemen, Smooth McGroove. I got you a water in case you need one.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Welcome. Feel free to move that around if you like.
Is it good? Is it picking me up?
Yeah, can you hear
Can
me?
you guys hear me?
Yeah.
It's good? Cool.
So, welcome. You've had a chance to walk around. What do you think so far of the place?
Haven't had a chance to walk around the whole thing yet, but it's a lot bigger than last year.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Huge compared to last year.
There's a ton of vendors in that other room, so if you're looking to pick some stuff up, now's the time. End of the day, they're going to be looking for deals.
Yeah, it seems like it.
So, some of you may be familiar with Smooth's current work. You know, a lot of a cappella recordings and stuff, but I did a little research and found out that before you did a cappella videos, you actually rapped about games.
Yeah, the whole Smooth McGroove concept came out of just goofy music that I was making that had nothing to do with a cappella. It was where I don't know how the idea came up, but I would rap the verses and sing the choruses, and I don't know how that came about. I think it came about mostly because I was just goofing around with music, because I'd done a lot of serious music in the past.
Yeah.
And the serious music thing kind of wears on me, so I wanted to have as much fun with it as possible, so I introduced the whole video game motif where I would, you know, come up with video games that I enjoyed and you know, make up stories about them or stories about people playing them.
Yeah.
And the whole rapping thing was, it was probably a little bit Beastie Boys inspired, maybe. I don't know.
Well, don't take this weirdly, but I'm a pretty big fan myself, so I made this.
Wow.
Honor of Smooth McGroove.
That is the first strength shirt I've ever seen.
I looked them up, man. You can't find them online. I'm going to make my own line.
That's number one.
Copyright 2015.
There you go, dude.
So, you know, if you've seen this guy at panels and whatnot, you know a little bit about how you got started with music. So can you talk to us a little about your musical background?
Yeah, I started off playing piano when I was in like 3rd grade. I took piano lessons because one of my friends did, and it was like a thing that we did together, like, you know, 30 minutes apart. That didn't last a whole long time because I really enjoyed playing my Sega Master System a lot more than piano. So I learned enough on piano where I could plink around. And my parents are both musicians. They actually met in a band audition. So I grew up around music like crazy. I mean, that's all that was like. Our garage was a practice space. And as time went on, I think it was about 6th grade where school band was a thing. That was like a class you could take, like an elective. And my mom convinced me that I was going to play saxophone like she was going to play. And so I showed up to the first day of school with a clarinet, because you play clarinet before you do saxophone.
Yeah, yeah.
And the band teacher was like, no, you're not going to do that. So we're going to test you first, see what you're good at. And I scored high in percussion, so I ended up being a drummer and took drum lessons all through middle school and high school. And yeah, I used to daydream that I would be a drummer in some band touring the United States.
Yeah.
That was my high school daydream.
Close enough, right?
Yeah. singing at home, singing.
No,
versus
no.
touring.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure there are bands looking for a drummer, right?
Maybe
the next
so.
Dave Grohl. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally. I can see that. Yeah. So in your videos, you know, I've noticed a lot of times what you're wearing is like just bright, non-branded clothing. Mm-hmm. Was that a conscious choice?
Well, in those first early videos, yeah, I had those yellow pants And yeah, that was a conscious choice because first of all, I wanted to have something that wasn't boring if I was going to be making music videos. So I bought 2 pairs of white Levi 501s, and I dyed one of them yellow and one of them orange. But at the same time, I dyed a shirt yellow and a shirt orange. And the shirts I didn't want to leave plain, so I ended up going to a local Oklahoma City place and getting them screen printed with a custom. The orange one had a Sulfuris, the Hand of Ragnaros on the front from Warcraft, and the yellow one had Starman from Mario. And I didn't end up. Well, no way. I think I did wear the orange one in the strength video.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if I wore the yellow one anywhere except for the Guile theme. Whenever I did that, I wore that, but you couldn't see the star. So those were just like kind of props for me, whenever I was starting all that stuff out.
So you just kind of continued with it?
Yeah, I just kept wearing them. I didn't make any new ones. I always thought it'd be cool to have like green pants and a green shirt, but
all right.
I never went through with it.
If anybody makes pants, talk to this guy after the show. That's not weird. No.
It's a little weird.
So, a little bit about your process when you make these tracks. From start to finish, do you have something in your head? Do you say, I like this game, I like the sound of this track, let's see if I can break it down? Or is it a matter of you're playing a game and it just hits you?
Well, it started off, as a matter of fact, I was, like the first one I ever did was the Zelda Ocarina of Time, the Zelda's Lullaby from that. And the entire thing, I was like, oh, that was fun, cool, I'll do another one. So I did the Zelda Ocarina of Time intro. And I remember talking to my wife, and I was like, man, I'm going to do every single Zelda Ocarina of Time song, all 82 songs from that game. I'll eventually complete it. And one of my early ideas was that I was going to do them all and release them all at once. And she was like, no, that's a bad idea. Don't do that. So I'm glad she told me that, because it was a lot more fun to release songs at a time and get feedback, because that also gave me an idea of what I could improve, what people thought about what I was doing. Any constructive criticism, of course, that helped a lot. So now, of course, I've branched out from Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
I think the first branch out I did was a Final Fantasy VIII song, then a Final Fantasy VII. So now it's just, I have this insane amount of requests that people just keep streaming at me, from all these games, all these songs. And I have kind of a to-do list I've made of a lot of the most numerous requests, and then also the requests that I think that I would just really want to do no matter what, even if I've only got one request, or in some cases none, like Xenogears. In fact, yeah, I'm not sure if I even got a Xenogears request before I did a Xenogears cover. But yeah, so sometimes, most of the time it's because they've been requested a lot, and I think they're great ideas, but sometimes it's just, I really want to do this song, or I really want to do a song from this game.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, speaking of constructive criticism, YouTube is kind of known for being the cesspool of comments of the internet.
Yes.
So, how do you deal with trolls? Do you get many trolls?
You know what? I think I'm fortunate because I don't get many. And
nobody get any ideas?
Well, anytime that anyone has ever said something that wasn't constructive criticism, because I do get constructive criticism and stuff, and even just straight up criticism, which I welcome because it gives me perspective. But anyone that's ever attempted to just leave a troll comment on one of my videos, they just get destroyed. There seems to be a lot of positive energy around video game music in general.
Yeah.
And so whenever someone just makes a trollish comment about this song, or me doing the song, it just gets either ignored or shut down to where I either don't see it, or I have to scroll like crazy through all my comments and eventually find one, and it's so out of place that. So yeah, I think it's partly because, unlike a lot of my peers who I've come to meet through YouTube, I don't present myself as a personality. I started my channel off as just music.
Right.
So that's what I put out. And a lot of people never even really knew what my voice sounded like when I wasn't singing these songs until I put out an update video. So I think it's because there's not a lot of people present themselves as targets on YouTube because, or they're easy targets because they put out jokes, they put out personality, they put out skits, things like that people can, I don't like that guy or whatever. But me, I don't talk.
Okay.
So I think because of that, I don't have that big target on me where it's like people make fun of me as a person.
Okay.
I think it's because it's just pure music and, you know, not even words, just like bahs and das and ahs, you know. If there is any target, it's in the way that I make them. So I've seen a lot of constructive criticism where it's like, oh, you say, you know, use this phrase too much, or you should have done it like this, or, you know, I really wish you would have done it like that. But those are more just like, hey, man, next time you ought to try this instead. Okay. And so I think, yeah, I'm fortunate that I haven't experienced many of the horrible comments that guys like, you know, Jontron, Jared, who's here, a lot of these guys who, I mean, I think they did a panel on YouTube comments at MagFest last year. It was hilarious. But yeah, I haven't experienced a whole lot of that. I've gotten a few personal messages that are just like scathing, but I don't respond to those, and cool. I haven't gotten enough to where it's bothered me. So
awesome.
Yeah, hopefully that covers.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a good thing. It's hard to hear somebody not getting a lot of trolls.
Yeah.
When it comes to constructive criticism, has that encouraged you to change something you've released, or when it's done, is it done?
It hasn't encouraged me to change anything. Sometimes it's made me wish that I would have done something a little differently.
Okay.
But most of the time, what it does is it gives me an idea of like what I want to do for the next song, or like the next time I do a song like that song. For instance, whenever I started making these videos, I just would, I had no idea what I was doing. So I would just have the song in my head and I would just say any syllables that I wanted, whether it was ba, ah, da, you know, whatever. Just any awkward, it sounds awkward saying it like that, but when you put it to music, it kind of works. But as I started going through videos, I realized that the syllable ba was powerful, and it was really easy to articulate, and you know, the syllable da like followed ba really easily, but using just da alone was awkward. It sounds extremely awkward, and la works for soft syllables, things like that. And the constructive criticism I've heard recently is that I use one syllable too often, and I've experimented enough with it to realize that there's probably a reason why a lot of people haven't taken what I do as seriously as what I do, because it's really awkward when you think about what I'm doing. It's really awkward whenever you think about individual tracks being recorded and you know, sitting there saying nonsense, and to make it actually sound good, and from a production standpoint, to make it sound good from a whatever standpoint, you know, accurate to the original one. So it's made me wish that there was more that I could do. So recently, like I did a Dark Souls song, the final boss theme, and I used some interesting, I guess what you call production techniques, or, you know, non-syllables. I just used vowels on a lot of that song, and that got some good feedback, because that song kind of required that. It required something different than what I normally do, okay, because it's a dark, solemn tune. So that was kind of a response to some of the criticism I've gotten in the past. So yeah, I welcome that, and because it does help me in the future when I attempt more difficult songs like that Dark Souls tune.
Okay, cool. So when you've got these arrangements set up, you usually got anywhere from 6 to maybe 12 different parts you're putting up on the screen.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into that, like recording it and then recording the video of it. Is the video of you singing it actual audio?
You mean like real time?
Right.
As I started going through it, I realized that my early videos, some of those tracks are just direct audio, video, and everything. But the problem with that is it requires so many takes, and SD cards get really hot after a while whenever you record them. So what I realized, what I would do is I would record the audio, you know, as many times as it took to get it to sound perfect, and then I would just do that for every track. And as I would go through, the video would come afterwards.
Okay.
And that would just make it so much easier to where not only had I nailed the audio track, and I already had it in my head memorized, I knew exactly how I was phrasing it, you know, with no mistakes, and I could just record the video right afterwards, and it would just flow seamlessly. I could have more fun with the video. I could have more fun with the whole process, and it wasn't near stressful, because if you go and watch my first 3 or 4 videos especially, I'm not having as much fun recording it.
No.
In fact, it's awkward to go watch those first videos, because I was in such a mode where I was just making a product, and I just couldn't wait to hear what it sounded like. And so that encouraged me to, like, you know, find ways to, you know, enhance it, because I started thinking, music videos that I watched growing up, none of them were live. You know, and if you watched a live video, you watched a live video, and it was like a band performing on stage, legit, all that kind of stuff. But you know, YouTube doesn't have a platform for that.
Right.
You know, Twitch TV exists now with live streaming and everything, but that would be interesting to see. I don't have 8 of myself,
right?
So I can't do that. But yeah. Anyways, like nowadays, it's mostly all, you know, step-by-step production.
Yeah.
And the end product ends up being, you know, as polished as I possibly can.
So a lot of times you're just waiting to come in on a certain part. You're just kind of sitting there. Like,
yeah, and that's where my cat comes in.
That's where
like
Charles comes in.
You know, bring him and put him
well,
up.
tell us a little bit about Charles. I see you didn't bring him. You don't tend to bring him to this kind of thing.
Dude, if any of you own cats, if I could bring him, I would, because cats are amazing, but cats are ultra territorial. Again, anyone who owns cats who's tried to bring them out of their house into their front yard or something like that where they don't want to go, oh my gosh, that's why they have those carrier things. You know, and I've moved Charles twice. We've moved twice, and the first time that we moved, I brought him out, and I had him like this, and we walked outside, and about 10 steps in, he instantly digs his claws into my arm, puts holes in my shirt, holes in my arm, and I didn't know what to do, and I was just like, oh crap. So I grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and tried to keep him away, and then got in the car, and I put him in the car, and he was just like, you know, making the cat noise. So it was rough. The second time we moved him, I think we had a carrier, and we put him in the carrier, and you know, to where he was freaked out, but he at least was enclosed in a space and wasn't, you know, attached to me. Didn't feel like he needed to be more attached. So if I could bring Charles like to any of these cons, I think that'd be a lot of fun. But cats aren't like dogs.
No.
That's why you don't see people bring cats to cons.
Right. You've seen some dogs around here. The past
dogs
couple
are
days.
great. Dogs don't care where they are as long as they're with you. Dogs are buddies, man.
Yeah.
Like I grew up with big dogs, and you know, you want to take it for a walk? Great. You want to take it to Walmart? Great. You want to take it, you know, to freaking anywhere you want, man. I mean, as long as it's with you, it's happy. And
yeah.
Except for small dogs.
Okay.
Small dogs are a little different. They can be a lot more protective and nervous because they're aware of their size.
Right.
And but yeah, I grew up around a lot of big dogs, like Great Pyrenees, German Shepherds, things like that. And more recently, I've experienced some smaller dogs. Like my mom has some smaller ones, and yeah, those.
Yeah.
Whole different deal. A lot more like cats. They just want to stay where they feel safe.
So how old is Charles?
Charles is 4.5.
4.5? Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. And I hear it's an interesting story how his name came about.
Yeah, it's just made up.
Just
It was actually, when I was growing up, my sense of humor revolved around making up names, making up words a lot. And my brother and I would make up words all the time. And I think Charles came about when I was naming World of Warcraft characters. I was naming just this dwarf female who I had dressed up in some stupid thing, or I was going to dress up in some stupid thing as like a mule character where I would store items, and I named it Charles, and I was like, that's ridiculous. It's like the singular of Charles. I've never heard that. And it wasn't until I got a phone call from my dad, I think about 2 years ago, and he was like, hey, you made up the name Charles, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, Charles just won the Masters golf tournament. I was like, what? And then come to find out, it's a Dutch name.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay. So I made up a name that's actually a name in Holland or wherever. Yeah.
That's great. Well, you mentioned your brother. You've been bringing him on a lot of your Smooth McGames videos.
Yeah.
So how did Smooth McGames come about?
Smooth McGames came about when I was considering taking a break from weekly videos, because for almost a year and a half, I put out one video a week, like pretty much no matter what. And I was coming to the conclusion that a lot of songs I had put on the back burner were going to be fairly impossible to finish in 1 week. So I didn't like that idea, because I was like, man, YouTube kind of functions on a schedule. Like, people love scheduled releases. They feel great about them. They know, something's coming out. They can wait for it. And just the way the YouTube algorithm works, kind of getting into the back end of YouTube, YouTube promotes videos that are out on the schedule usually. And I was kind of like, man, if I'm not going to have a schedule with my acapellas anymore, they break a schedule, I would like to have something that's scheduled. So then I came up with the idea, I'll just record myself playing games I enjoy, or games I've never played. So I came up with the idea to make a gaming channel to where I could put out scheduled content while people were waiting for acapella videos. So like while I'm making One Winged Angel or something like that, which took me 3 weeks, people could watch those videos and have something to watch while they're waiting. I didn't end up releasing Smooth McGames until after I did One Winged Angel and took a massive break from YouTube. So it didn't work out like I planned, but that's how it came about.
Awesome. I would highly recommend watching his Zelda playthrough if you haven't seen it. That was a lot of fun.
It was a little awkward sometimes, but I had fun. I had fun recording.
Okay, cool. It's awesome. So you're arranging this music, you're making the acapella videos, and you're still thinking about making other music on your own in general, right?
Yeah.
How has this affected that?
Well, when I kind of fell into the acapella thing and realized that this is a really fun project and I want to keep doing it and get better at it, everything else went on the back burner. So I stopped writing original music, and I stopped working on original music that I had already started on. So it wasn't until recently that I kind of have gotten back to writing original music or revisiting original tracks, and I haven't released anything, but I would like to eventually, work on some of that and flesh some of that out, because it involves, I'm a drummer, so it involves drums and guitar and possibly keyboards and vocals and possibly even bringing in other people to create some music that isn't just a cappella. So, maybe in the future it'll come out. I don't know.
So would you bring a video game aspect into that, or is that completely different?
Possibly, yeah. I've come up with some ideas that involve certain video games and like themes and stuff that I would weave into the lyrics of these songs that wouldn't necessarily be all a cappella. So I haven't, again, because acapellas have kind of become what I do for a living and what people look forward to for me, it's hard for me to take a break from that and work on something else that is so unsure, something that's not fleshed out. So I'll work on it when it feels right. That's kind of what I've come up with.
Right. I noticed a lot of your different stuff tends to have different influences. Like your Minecraft video sounded a lot like Flaming Lips.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't heard that.
I didn't know if that was like intentional or if there's something that came about. But what other bands would you say inspire your musical tenure?
Lots of them. I mean, I did a Flaming Lips a cappella early in my YouTube stuff before I had even 100 subscribers.
Do you have that on your YouTube channel?
It's on my YouTube channel. There's an Animal Collective song that I did, I think, right before that Flaming Lips song. That was still when I was experimenting with my format. And yeah, those are the only two non-video game related acapellas that I did besides the parody that I did, which was a Fall Out Boy parody that I had heard on the radio.
Okay.
And I wrote it about Charles. So,
nice.
so there are three that I did that aren't video game related. But yeah, man, I grew up listening to all sorts of stuff. My dad would blast AC/DC on Saturday mornings. He played the Beatles, Led Zeppelin. I mean, all sorts of classic rock.
Oh man,
yeah,
that's a good way to keep yourself going too. They'll still play that stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk a little bit more about the technical side of Smooth McGroove. Have you upgraded hardware or software since you started?
Yes.
So what did you start with?
I started off with the stuff that I had bought to record, like drums, guitar, bass, and vocals, which was a Sapphire Pro 40 audio device. It sat under my monitor as like a rack mount unit, but it sat under my monitor. It was perfect, and I could just plug microphones in or guitars in. Had a little mixer, and I think it was less than $500.
Wow.
And I'd saved up and bought that, years ago. I think 2008, 2009. I had a used microphone that my dad got me for my birthday, like 2006. That's what I recorded all my early Smooth McGroove stuff on, which sounds great, by the way. It still sounds good. I had old used cables from my dad's music store, and I used an old version of Cubase. And recently, like now, I don't use that microphone anymore. I've upgraded to what's called a Neumann U47 clone.
Neumann's a good brand.
Or a Neumann. I guess that's how it's pronounced actually. It's not the actual one, because those microphones are like $15,000 or something. So I got a clone, a modern clone, and it sounds great. The big advantage with what I've noticed with it is that it picks up bass way better.
Charity Bazaar, get in on that.
Yeah,
but hang around. So continue your Neumann clone.
Yeah, the big advantage of that microphone is just it picks up bass way better, so I don't have to do near as much EQing after the fact, which is messing with the audio. It allows the acapellas to sound a lot more natural. I don't have to do near as much production, especially on the bass tracks and the mid-range stuff. So I upgraded that. I upgraded from the Sapphire Pro 40 to a more professional audio thing that allows me to record in like any format I want. So that's been fun. I upgraded my cables, which actually make a difference, by the way.
Really?
Yeah,
Good
mic cables make a difference in sound. There's endless debate on the internet about that, but I actually compared my old one to the one that I bought, and if you listen to it through headphones especially, you can hear a difference. And I was kind of blown away.
That is crazy. A simple cable can really change a lot.
Yeah.
So for somebody, I've seen a lot of people starting to pop up do a cappella stuff, just like you are.
Yeah.
Would you have any recommendations for them or any sort of direction that they should take to get started?
Just have fun with it. That's the biggest thing. Have fun with it. Pay attention to timing. It's the biggest thing. I've had people that have emailed me or sent me messages about how they are trying to do something similar and how they're having issues. And the biggest thing I say is work with a metronome. Work with a visual metronome at the same time as an audio metronome, so everything is right on. Set the tempo before you start the project, and that makes everything go much, much better. Yeah.
And so apparently it takes a lot of time. I mean, you're saying like One Winged Angel would take you 3 weeks?
Oh yeah, that took me 21 days of straight work, you know. That was a massive song.
So how does that process come about? I mean, do you start just by listening to it over and over?
Yeah, like it helps if I already know the song. And I basically go into Cubase and record scratch audio tracks of each of them. If I can find priorly written MIDI tracks, that helps, because I usually end up going and doing my own MIDI stuff to make sure that like all the arpeggios and stuff are right on key, so I have a visual as well as an audio reference. And then once I set all that up, it's just track by track. It's just a grind, man. It's so much work, but the exciting thing is that as I'm working on it, like the song I'm working on right now is actually, the song I'm working on right now is probably the biggest song I've done since One Winged Angel. And the thing that keeps me motivated on songs like that is thinking about what it's going to sound like when it's done. Because I can be listening to what I'm recording at the moment, or like redoing a track or redoing half a track, and just being like, oh, this is so much, so tedious work, and look at all this I have left to do. But if I just keep in my mind like, man, but when this is like finished, it's going to sound great. You know, if I spend enough time on it and do it, you know, like I want to, and stay patient, stay focused. You know, that's the whole reason why I'm able to finish these.
So you do this full time?
Yes.
Was there a point where you were considering doing this full time and weren't, or have you just dove right in?
Yeah, early on, like before my YouTube channel had any subscribers, and it was basically like my friends and family that were subscribed to me. I wasn't making any income off these videos. I was going to school. I was working. It wasn't until I think Spark Mandrill and Guile's theme hit, where all of a sudden I had like 1,000 subscribers, and then all of a sudden I had 10,000 subscribers. I was just like, wow. So in my mind I was like, man, if I want to, right now is the perfect time to decide whether to pursue this as a full-time thing. And I remember talking to my wife, and I was like, man, I'm really thinking about doing this as a full-time thing. And she was like, go for it. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna do it. And it was exciting and scary at the same time, but I'm glad I made that decision.
Awesome. So how do you make money just being an internet celebrity?
Well, first it was just becoming a YouTube partner, getting into the YouTube partner program where you make a share of the ads, and for me it was getting together with the YouTube network as well, so I could protect myself and do licensing from copyright because I do covers. And once I got all that set up, it was just kind of like, all the back end was taken care of, and I could just make music and release it, and all the licensing and all that stuff, the cuts, was happening without me having to worry about it. That was great.
Yeah.
But to actually pursue it as a full-time living and, make as much as I would have as a normal job, I started selling stuff on iTunes via licensing and Bandcamp and Louder. The Louder guys have been awesome. I sold some T-shirts, in Shark Robot, and just try to make this as big as I could, to where like I had income coming in to where whenever the ad revenue was low, based on seasonal ad revenue stuff, which is a thing in advertising,
okay.
I would have a safety net, through album sales or stuff like that. And then I started a Patreon account, which was a donation thing, and that pretty much sealed the deal. That's where I can make a living doing this now, So whenever the ad revenues are coming in, or I haven't released a new album in a while, or whatever, I'll still have those people that
Just a couple of announcements. If you have a passport, that's the map that you were given when you entered the expo. Get that filled out, turn it in at the SBC merchandise booth, and we'll have a drawing at 4 o'clock for a VIP prize pack. We'll also be closing the charity bazaar at 4 o'clock, so get your bids in. And the con ends today at 5 p.m. So have a good time, and if you have any questions, see us at merchandise.
she done? I don't know. Let's give her a minute.
Done.
You think she's done?
But yeah, as I was saying, the Patreon was like if people there are like what I call my super supporters. Those people who are there and like they're willing to give me like $1 every time I release a video, like to support my work, just no matter what, or $5. And whenever I set that up, I got overwhelming support, more than I ever thought I would. And that allowed me to really focus on this full time and realize that no matter what, I could keep doing this, even if something with YouTube fell apart or other things didn't work out. The Patreon supporters would be there, and they would be supporting me on whatever platform I wanted to do. So.
And I'd never heard of Patreon before I saw it on your page. How would these guys know to support you? Is it patreon.com? Is that a thing?
Patreon, it's a lot like Kickstarter, except Kickstarter would work for me if I wanted to do like albums or something, but since I release song after song, week after week, Kickstarter doesn't really work for that. So Patreon is basically a thing where you could support a creator that creates content weekly or monthly or something like that, or even daily, and each time they release a creation, you donate to them like $1 or 50 cents or $2 or $5 or $10, just whenever they create something. And I was surfing on the internet one day and I saw Patreon early on, and it hadn't really kicked in any community yet, but I saw several other artists on there, and I was like, wow, this is like perfect for what I do. And I created a Patreon, and it would just work perfectly because there were people out there who like enjoyed the rewards that I would give, because if you give me $1 for every video I make, I have like a Patreon feed where I post stuff sometimes. Like the different levels have different rewards, a lot like Kickstarter. So the people who are like my super supporters, we do like Google Hangouts monthly or one-on-one chats over Skype or Google Hangouts. In fact, one of them yesterday, I was having a chat with one of my top supporters. He was in line for Super BitCon.
Huh.
And while we were having our Google thing, he was out and about. He was like, "Oh yeah, we'll have it." He put on his front camera and was like walking around Super BitCon yesterday, showing me all the booths and everything. And
cool.
That was our hangout. We did that for probably 45 minutes. And
awesome.
That was because of Patreon.
I feel like Sarah McLachlan, just for $1 a week, you too.
But there are a lot of amazing creators on Patreon. It's not just people who do music. It's people who make like webcomics, people who do music videos, people who do podcasts. I mean, it's a lot of people have joined the platform.
Awesome. That's awesome. So what do you do in your spare time? I mean, you're not just making music all the time. I'm sure it can get a little tedious. You need a break.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You need breaks.
So I understand you made a chainmail shirt.
Yeah, that I did. I had a chainmail hobby years ago where I would just make chainmail. And a chainmail shirt takes a long time to make, and I created 2 chainmail shirts. I made an endless amount of jewelry, like bracelets. I learned how to make rings, which was interesting, necklaces, things like that. I did that when I was actually taking a break from Diablo 2, which I was playing a lot at the time. I decided to do something in real life rather than play Diablo 2 for 10 hours a day. Not 10 hours, sometimes. But yeah, I made chainmail. Nowadays, I play games. Like my buddies just started WoW on like a private server playing World of Warcraft. I played with them yesterday. That was fun. A few weeks ago, I pulled up Pokemon Yellow. Started playing that because I hadn't played that in a long, long time. Sometimes I pull up Twitch.tv and like look and see what games people are playing, if any new games have come out. I bought Pillars of Eternity 2 days ago, which is a throwback to like Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Neverwinter Nights, like those old school computer RPGs. It's this new game that's in the same vein that was actually kickstarted, and it brought in like $4 million on Kickstarter because no one makes these type of games anymore. And I bought that and played it for probably 6 hours straight.
Man.
And it's an awesome game. I want to finish it eventually.
Cool. I got you here chatting your ear off.
Yeah, it's all good.
So what's the future of Smooth McGroove? Where do you plan to go? How do you build your empire?
Well, there are a lot of songs that I still want to do, a lot of songs that people still want me to do, which is encouraging. That's the most encouraging thing, is the fact that like I could probably rattle off 50 songs from 50 different games that people still want me to do, and I get requests for, weekly. So that's extremely motivating. Eventually, I think it would be fun to try to, maybe branch out from video games, do some movie stuff, do some TV show stuff that I watched when I was growing up, cartoons, just anything. I've thrown around the idea of doing like some anime intro theme acapellas because I watch anime, and yeah, things like that.
I'm looking forward to the DuckTales theme from you. That'll be
the
good.
DuckTales video game. Yeah, DuckTales intro for the cartoon would be a lot of fun.
There you go. There you go. I may be out of questions here, but I really want to thank you for coming and spending your time here. What do you guys think? Any quick questions I can ask him? What can I do for you, Frankie?
Man, I haven't actually released any physical CDs. That's actually a question I've got sometimes. I only recently found out an easy way for me to release physical CDs through licensing and not have to like rip my hair out and take a break from acapellas, because that stuff is so time consuming, all the businessy stuff behind there.
Yeah.
And releasing physical stuff, I didn't have the manpower or the means to do it. But I would actually, on that same note, I would love to release I Don't Play Games When I Play Games on physical copy, as well as all my acapella stuff in physical copy someday.
Awesome. Questions? I don't have a mic, man. You're just going to have to yell. What's your favorite game?
He said anime.
See why I can't hear?
It's all good.
I'm not blaming that
I
guy.
can read lips. Not really. But, my favorite anime, man, I think it's probably a toss-up between, it's really hard for me to decide. I love Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is, true to the original manga, because it's one of my favorite mangas. But I also recently watched and finished all of Hunter x Hunter, which is amazing. And that anime has things that Full Metal Alchemist doesn't have, and vice versa. So those are two of my favorites.
Oh, man. Got time for maybe these two guys?
Percussion, brass, and woodwind instrument. Well, percussion, a drum set, like a simple 5-piece drum set with a good set of cymbals. I could sit on that any day.
Got a favorite brand?
Actually, Drum Workshop. Yeah, I have a Drum Workshop drum set, and recently got some Mino cymbals, which are nice. Brass instrument, I'm not as familiar with all the different types of brass instruments, so I don't know. French horns are cool. They have, because a lot of French horns are used in like orchestral video game soundtracks. English horns, French horns, things like that. And woodwind, man, bassoons are pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. There you go. And that guy, last question.
Say that one more time? No, I haven't. What's that? Cool, yeah.
Eye of the Tasmanian Tiger.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one. That's a new one.
Yeah, it'd be a cool one to
Yeah,
check
but yeah,
out.
thanks. I'll check it out.
All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have, man. I really want to thank you very much for coming out here
no problem,
and
man.
chatting a little bit and letting me fangirl out a little on you.
Nice shirt. Yeah, that's amazing.
All right. But thank you very much.
no
Ladies and
problem,
gentlemen,
man.
Smooth McGroove.